Howdy, gang, and happy holidays. Welcome once again to the Duct Tape Studios. I'm Jeff McAleer, your host, here at the Gaming Gang channel. Thanks for joining me once again. Today, I am going to share my review of Cults of RuneQuest, the Lightbringers, from Chaosium Inc. This is written by Greg Stafford and Jeff Richard. This 162-page hardcover is available with PDF if you order from Chaosium or any of their partners. It does carry an MSRP of $39.99, or you can grab just the PDF alone over at DriveThruRPG for $19.99. All that said, let's swing on over to the other camera because here I've got Cults of RuneQuest, the Lightbringers. Few things I want to mention before I dive on in. First of all, it has been a while since I have been able to put out a lot of reviews. And if you don't follow too closely what goes on with the Gaming Gang, the laptop I do all my video editing, all of my graphics for the videos, it bought the farm. But thanks to many of you out there who donated towards a new laptop, I've got a new laptop. I've got new graphics. Here come all the reviews. So strap yourself in. So talking about Cults of RuneQuest, the Lightbringers, I do want to mention that my friends over at Chaosium Inc. were kind enough to provide me with this review copy. But neither I nor anyone else affiliated with the Gaming Gang has received any other sort of compensation for me to share this review with you. And these days, it's very important that you know that. We're also not going to look at each and every page of this book, but I do want to give you a very good feel for what you're going to find inside the Lightbringers and share my thoughts about it as well. All right, so let's dive on in. First thing I want to mention is the artwork throughout is fantastic. There are some stunning pieces of artwork in here. And even the least exciting piece of art is really, really well done. And that is saying something for a role-playing game release. So you will be treated to some really great artwork throughout the Lightbringers. So want to make sure, give some credit to our artists here, as well as our design and layout. And of course, this is written by the late, great Greg Stafford, as well as Jeff Richard. And I will say that you would have thought it was within the realm of possibility when, unfortunately, Greg Stafford passed, that would sort of be the end of RuneQuest, or maybe the end of new content for RuneQuest. Well, I have to say, Jeff Richard has done stunning work with RuneQuest. I think right now, RuneQuest is probably in the best shape it has ever been as far as a fantasy role-playing game. And there is just phenomenal content that has been coming out, really starting with the latest edition of the core rulebook. The starter set is fantastic as well. So really, really excited for the current state and future state of RuneQuest, because I've got a really soft spot in my heart for this role-playing game, because RuneQuest is actually probably the third role-playing game I picked up in my life. And I had the little 1-inch box from Chaosium. I probably bought it, I think about 1980, because I think I had picked it up before I actually got into high school. So I think it was the summer of 1980 that I got it, and I was blown away by it because it was so unlike anything else that was out there. All right, so let's talk about the Lightbringers. So this is a pantheon book, and to be very honest with you, this is the sort of book that all fantasy role-playing games should strive to achieve, because there is so much usefulness in here for the players and the game masters. And I gotta say, that is not something we normally see from the various deities in fantasy role-playing games. Most of the time, we only get a few paragraphs about various different deities and what they bring to the table. So if you have a character in their class as a healer, a cleric, what have you, okay, well, here's a handful, if even that many, deities for them to choose from. Normally, you're going to end up with 5 paragraphs at most describing that deity. Here we've got the entire Lightbringer pantheon. We get the history of it. One thing I really do like about the Lightbringers is that as a player and as a game master, you will remain entertained when reading this book, which is also not something I can say applies to all other fantasy role-playing games when we're talking about various different pantheons of gods. So what we're going to see is a breakdown of the various different deities who make up the Lightbringers. All the way from Orlanth, who is essentially the major player in this pantheon. We get over 20 pages devoted to that deity. And then we also have some deities that aren't even worshipped any longer. So they are mentioned, but we don't get any details about them because they aren't worshipped any longer. So all of this comes from the point of view of members of this cult. And keep in mind, when we talk about cults in RuneQuest, we're not talking about real life cults and cultists these days. They're just believers, essentially. And your player character in RuneQuest can belong to multiple cults. So each of these deities are going to be broken down into sections throughout the book. So as an example, we've got the goddess of compassion. We get information about the mythos, the history, what is the nature of the cult. As an example, what sort of player character would be interested in worshiping this deity? What are you going to get out of it as a player character? Because the big point to make, and one of the great selling points of RuneQuest for many people, is the fact that it is a fantasy role-playing game that does not have classes. So basic role-playing evolved from original RuneQuest, as of course did Call of Cthulhu and many other basic role-playing games from Chaosium Inc. So you can have characters that focus on various different skill sets, and it's going to discuss those sorts of characters who would be worshiping these deities. We also get the benefits or different aspects of the deity based upon your standing within the cult. So we have lay membership, we have initiates, and then we also have the rune level. So if you're a rune lord or a rune priest, a shaman, and so forth. As you can see, artwork throughout really, really well done. What we're also going to get for most of these deities, our spells, rune magic that are focused on those deities, as well as some of the starting skills that a new character may have or they may focus on if they happen to be creating a character who belongs to this cult. And once again, it's important to keep in mind, player characters can belong to a variety of cults. It is not just simply one god or one deity that they believe in or that they worship. Think about the Roman pantheon of gods or the Greek pantheon of gods. If you were a Greek back in ancient times, it wasn't that, well, you only believed in Artemis. No, you believed in Athena and Zeus and Hera and the entire pantheon, and it works very similar to that as well. So just flipping on through here. But if you have any interest in RuneQuest and have any interest whatsoever in bringing the pantheons to greater life at your game table, these are must-have books. The Cults of RuneQuest books are must-owns. I'm not necessarily saying that every player has to have a copy of this. Absolutely not. And truth be told, you don't need to have a copy of every single one of these Cults of RuneQuest books, which are going to deal in different pantheons. The Lightbringers are probably the deities who have the most membership across the world of Glorantha, and probably the Earth Goddesses, which is the second book that was released at the same time as the Lightbringers in the Cults of RuneQuest line, probably have about the second most. But you don't need to have all of these books to bring all of these deities, all of these pantheons to life. But this is just jam-packed with useful information. I can't stress that enough, that this is a pantheon book that you are going to get a lot of use out of at your game table for not only your player characters, but NPCs as well. Just going to flip through here real quickly. Just show you a few more of these, but as I keep stressing, artwork is really, really well done. I do have a couple of quibbles about Cults of RuneQuest, the Lightbringers. I will talk about those in just a moment. But the reality is, this is such a great book. It is really, really well done and very, very useful, and really shows how unique these player characters can be within the world of RuneQuest. All right, so that's a peek inside Cults of RuneQuest, the Lightbringers. Let's swing on over to the other camera, because I'm going to share some final thoughts as well as my review score. Well, as you can see, I really like this a ton. A ton. I am so impressed by what we continue to see Chaosium Inc. release for RuneQuest. They are on the top of their game as far as this game. They really, really are. As I mentioned, a couple of quibbles. First one, I would have liked to have seen maybe a little thicker paper stock with this book. It's clocking in at 162 pages. As you can see, pretty thin. If you compare this to some of the books we've seen that clock in around 120, 140 from Free League Publishing, they're actually a little thicker than this because Free League uses such heavy paper stock. Now, I'm not saying that Chaosium Inc. has to do that, but I know this will hold up pretty well at your game table. I would have just liked to have seen just a little heavier paper stock on this. Other thing to mention is that this is being presented as a book that non-gamers will probably enjoy reading. If you are interested in fictional mythology, which mythology is all fictional, but you know what I mean. Mythology that isn't actually based on the real world, religions and myths and legends and so forth. I don't know if I agree with that, because there's a lot of gaming material in here. This is not just a setting book which doesn't have any rules or spells or anything along those lines, any mechanics, which we do see from time to time for various different role-playing games, or it's just a setting book, a fiction book. That is not the case here. And the way this is written is more informational as opposed to, say, a narrative book. So I would say I don't imagine too many non-gamers picking this up and getting much out of it. This is not a mythology book, say, like you would see some of the recent releases from Neil Gaiman or Stephen Fry. Now, it's not narrative at all. It's just giving you background, history, and useful information to be utilized by players at the game table and game masters at the game table too. So that's the other quibble. I wouldn't have marketed this book like that. I wouldn't have marketed the book saying that, well, if you're not a gamer, you'll enjoy this. Now, that doesn't mean that the recent mythology book for Cults of RuneQuest doesn't fall into that category. Just the Lightbringers and Earth Goddesses do not. But that's it. That's all I've got as far as minor quibbles about Cults of RuneQuest, the Lightbringers. All in all, this is a fantastic book. Artwork is stunning for the most part, and there is just loads and loads of useful knowledge in this volume. On a scale of 0 to 10, I give Cults of RuneQuest, the Lightbringers, the rarefied 10 out of 10. I think it is that good. I think if you have any interest in RuneQuest, this is a must-own. If you run RuneQuest, this is a must-own. If you play RuneQuest, make sure somebody in your group owns this, is what I'm saying. As I had mentioned earlier, this is the sort of pantheon book, mythos book, that all fantasy role-playing systems should strive to release for their games. It is that good. All right, that is it for this time out. If you like the review, by all means, please give it a quick thumbs up. Subscribe to the Gaming Gang channel if you haven't already. And if you do subscribe, don't forget, ring that bell, because it'll not only let you know when I upload videos such as this review, it'll also inform you when my live stream, the Gaming Gang Dispatch, airs Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday evenings right here on YouTube at 7 p.m. Central. And of course, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit gaminggang.com for all the latest in tabletop gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more you will not find here on the YouTube channel. You know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. Once again, I'm Jeff McAleer. Thank you very much for watching. And until I see you next time, here's hoping all of you out there get to enjoy plenty of great gaming with your gang.